Hello. So, good evening. Let's wait for a few more minutes for others to join. We'll just wait for one more minute and then we'll begin. So, let's crack CBSE Science. Welcome to Unacademy and welcome to my class. Okay. Yes, it's time and let's start. Yes, hello and good evening. Good evening, Mukesh. Good evening, Devika. So, I hope all of you are safe, sound, and healthy. And welcome to Let's Crack CBSE Science. So, as you know, we have been dealing with CBSE Computer Science. So, prior to moving on to our lessons, let me give you a self introduction. Hello, I'm Shalini. I'm a teacher by profession with over 14 years of teaching experience. I'm a BTech and MTech holder in computer science and engineering. With Unacademy, I am excited to provide an inspiring learning experience to all the students via this online platform. So now let's get to see um, what an academy is. Okay, so this is not something that is going to be very new to you because all of you know, and an academy is a happening app of the time, not because it is just because of the pandemic situation, but also for the reason that in an academy you get a course whether you're a CBSE school student or an aspirant preparing for a competitive examination. It is like a one stop destination for any such aspirant, and hence, an academy has grown out to be India's largest e learning platform. Okay. So, what do you get in an academy? You get to see the daily live classes. All the courses in an academy are well structured and in line with the current examination syllabus. There are live tests and quizzes which would help you to evaluate your preparation and gives you an analysis of your performance and unlimited access. So once you get a subscription to an academy, you get unlimited access to all the live and recorded courses posted in an academy. Okay. So by daily live classes, it is that you get facility to chat with the educator. You can engage in discussions, ask doubts, and answer via polls. Now, all these facilities while the live class is going on, okay? By structured courses, you mean all the courses are well structured in line with the current examination syllabus. So, this would help you to prepare better for the examination. There are live tests and quizzes, okay, conducted in the app, which would help you to evaluate your preparation, gives you an analysis of how well you are moving on towards the preparation of your oncoming examination. Okay, so if you miss out a live session, you needn't worry, because in the app there is a provision to view the recorded videos also. So all you have to do is get a subscription so that you get the access to all the resources inside Unacademy. Okay. So this is how the comprehensive syllabus would look like. You would have the different subjects, and underneath each of the subject you would have the courses listed. So based on your need, you can select the courses posted by different educators and then listen to their classes. Okay. So this is the Unacademy learning app, okay, which you need to download in your smartphones. So do not confuse. It is the Unacademy learning app you need to download from the Play Store and install in your smartphones and get the subscription based on your choice. Now, apart from that, there is a Telegram channel too, wherein you get access to all the study materials posted by the educators. Now, all you have to do is just download the Telegram app in your smartphones. Okay, and then do you see the link provided here? You need to type the link in the URL as shown in the figure and then click to join, wherein you join the Telegram channel and get access to the materials posted by the different educators. Now this is the most important slide, wherein you get the details about the various subscription fee details. Now this is the class 12 subscription fee details, wherein you have the different plans, and across each of the plan the cost of the plan is also being listed here. So the plans vary from a month to a year subscription, which would cost you from 2,500 to 12,500. Now, if you apply my promo code SLYT, I repeat, if you apply my referral or promo code SLYT, what happens? You get a discount of 10% on the fee. So that is a month subscription which could cost you around 2,500 would give after reduction would cost you only 2,250. Okay. Now the same way in the slabs below also the same discount is available. So do not hesitate. Please take up a subscription based on your choice and your need. If you are a class 11 student, I would definitely suggest you to go for a year subscription. And if you are a 12th class student, either a 6 months or a 12 months course can be taken. Okay. So let's move on. So moving on. As I told you, we have been dealing with class 12, CBSE class 12 computer science, and we have been learning the topics as per the NCERT syllabus. So we were looking into Python for the last couple of days, and today we're going to see working with functions in Python. And after each chapter, after each learning each chapter, we'll be looking into the question discussion. And in the last class, we discussed about the conceptual based question and a little into the application based questions. This is what we'll be looking into today. Okay. So I hope all of you are ready. Okay. So let's pitch in. So moving on to our first question. Okay. So let's see the first question. If return type is not used inside the function, what would be the function return? Okay, so you are given with four choices. Listen, what will the value be? The value will be 0, none, an arbitrary integer, or will it cast an error? Okay, now this is something that we already saw in the previous class and also when we were discussing the void functions, right? What would it return? What is a void function? The void function is such that, what are void functions? Void functions are such that they may or may not have a return statement, but they would not be returning any particular value to the point at which the function is called, right? Now, what was the default or legal value, return value of void functions? We learned it to be none, right? So if a statement, return statement is not used inside the function, what would the function be? The function would be void functions, right? So what will be the value returned? The value returned would be none. Okay. Okay. So this is the answer to your first question. So I hope the question is clear to you. If you find that the return statement is missing in a function, what would the function be? The function would be a void function. So that means nothing is going to be returned. Now, what was the other name for void function? Can anybody say? Can anybody post it in the chat? What was the other name given to the void function? It was anybody? Nobody. You forgot it so fastly. So the void functions are non-fruitful functions. What are they? They are non-fruitful functions. What are fruitful functions? Functions that returned a value were considered as fruitful function, and functions that do not return a value are called as non-fruitful functions. So the answer to this question is what? The legal empty value, which is none. Okay, so the option B. So moving on to the next question. Which of the following keywords marks the beginning of the function block? Now, how do you indicate that your function definition is going to start? Okay, so you're given with again four choices: FUNC, define, DEF, and function. Now, which among the four options? Yes, Gokul, good evening and welcome to Let's Crack CBSE Science. So, which of the following keywords marks the beginning of a functional block? So, when we learned the syntax of the function, we saw that every function starts with a keyword. And what was the keyword? Def, right? Def followed by the function name, and then you would have the parameters, right? The parameters which are enclosed between parentheses, and then you would have the colon. Okay, so this was a standard format for the function header. So which is a keyword which marks the definition or marks the beginning of the function block? It is definitely DEF and not any of the choices that have been listed here. So what is the answer? The answer is option C. Okay. So it is DEF. Now moving on to our third question. What is the area of memory called which stores the parameters, local variables of a function call? Okay. And you are given with four choices. What are the choices? Heap, storage area, a stack, or an array. Okay. Now, what is the area of memory called? Okay, so definitely memory is something wherein you store something. You store the values, right? So definitely storage area cannot be a name given to a part of the memory. It is the meaning of what memory is. So it can be knocked out from the option. Okay. Now what are we left with? Heap, stack and array. Now array is a data structure which is capable of holding data and wherein operations like insertion, deletion, modification, etc. are possible. So in this case, you can knock off array also. So what are you left with? You are left with option A and option C. Okay. So the area in which you would be storing the parameters or values related to a function call. Now imagine you are having a function f1. Okay. Now inside this f1, you are having another function defined which is f2. Okay. So what would happen each time when a function is being invoked or called inside? Now first, what would happen? Function f1 would be invoked, and when you try to access this function, you happen to see that there is another function f2 which is defined inside f1. Is idea clear? You are having a nesting of functions in which you have the outermost function is f1 and you have an innermost function f2. What would happen? Once you get into f1, the function would be executed. It encounters f2. Now what would happen? The control would get transferred to another point where f2 is defined. And we have also learned that once the function execution is complete, the control has to return back, right? Now, if proper returning has to be done, now in what order should the proper returning happen? The innermost function should be returned first and only then the outermost function, right? So something like last in, first out has to happen here, right? Last in, first out, or LIFO. Now, which is the data structure which helps you in LIFO? It is nothing but the stack. Okay. So, whenever you're using a function call, and the answer is if you have to store the parameters and local variables of a function call, where in what part of the memory is it saved? It is saved in the stack. Okay. So hence the answer option C, which is stack. Now moving on to our next question, we're going to find the errors in the following. So you are given with two statements here. The first statement beginning with DEF followed by the keyword main. Now main is what? The name of your function, right? Since it is following DEF, then main, and you have the opening and closing parenthesis, round bracket. And beneath that you have an intended statement showing that this is the statement inside your function, and what is being asked? You need to print hello, right? Now, what do you think would be the errors here? Now, we have learned that the function header for the function definition. How do it start? It starts with the keyword def. Okay, so this is there, no problem. You have a name for the function. Now, this name is an identifier and not a keyword, so that is also not a problem. Now, you have followed by the function brackets, parenthesis. It is there, no issue. Now, how would the function header terminate? It terminates using colon, right? Now, is a colon symbol happening here? No. So, this is your first error. Okay. So, this is one error because colon is missing. Or you have a wrong syntax here. Okay. Now, following you have a print statement. Now, how is a print statement should be shown? It has to be shown between round bracket or parenthesis, right? So, the hello, the message to be printed as such, how should it have been coming? It should have been coming like this, right? So, there are no opening and closing parenthesis also. So actually we have spotted the errors here. Now let us move on to the next slide to see the answer. Yes. Now all those that I have marked in red, the font color red is supposed to be the errors or missing part here. All the function definition header terminates with a colon. The message to be printed should be within a pair of parentheses, which was also missing in your program. Okay. So let's move on to our next code fragment. Now here you have been given a function. You have defined a function. What is the name of your function? func. Okay. Now inside the function you are trying to compute a value and print it. Okay. It is something like you're calculating the value of x squared. And what is func? Now this is a function call. Now where does this happen? It happens in your main program, right? It is not as intended or in line with the P of print statement. It is in line with DEF, right? So definitely this is going to be your main program. So in the main program, you're trying to invoke or call the function func. What would happen? The control gets transferred here. Now inside the function, what is being asked to do? You are supposed to print the value of x squared. But do you have the value of x here? No, right? Then how can x squared be calculated? So here definitely what is the error? The error is name x is not defined. So this is the result that you get. So moving on to our next code fragment. You have a function of the name square. Okay, and then you are passing a value, which is the parameter. What is the parameter here? A is your parameter. And then after returning a squared, you're trying to invoke or call the function by passing the argument as 2. Now, what are the errors spotted here? Now, we know that every function definition starts with the keyword def. Now, def is missing here. And how does the function terminate? The header terminates with the colon symbol. Is a colon symbol here? Now, again, that is also missing, right? Now, except for all these two things, everything is clear here. Upon passing, if you had given, or if suppose you try to correct the program, it would look like square of a followed by colon. Okay. Now, what is to be returned? You need to return a and fix a, right? This is the only statement inside your function, or this is your function body. Now, what is going to happen? You are trying to invoke the function square. What is the name of your function? Square. What is the value being passed? 2, right? So what would happen? Whenever you're trying to invoke or call the function square would be invoked or called, and what would happen? A would get the value 2, and this is how the value would be given here and then computed. So 2 into 2, 4. And what have you asked to do? You need to return the value of 4. Now this would be returned at this point. But do you think you will be able to see the value? Now this is not going to cause any error because you would have an empty screen in the output. But if you really want to see the output, what you need to do is enclose this function call within the print statement. Only then you'll be able to see the output. Okay. So I repeat, this is not going to be an error if we omit the print statement also, because the only thing is, though the value is getting returned, it will not be printed on screen. To print it, you need to enclose the function call inside the print statement. Okay. Okay, let me erase this so that this would be clear to you. See this. The function definition begins with the def keyword and the header. What is the header? The function header. It terminates with a colon. Okay, so all these things are missing. Suppose you want to see the returned value on the screen. What you have to do? You need to enclose it between side the print. Now, whatever was missing, and I have corrected the program and listed here. Now, the missing parts are shown in bold font. Okay. So I hope you could follow this also. If there is any doubts, you can ask me now. I hope these are all simple things to be identified from the code fragment. Okay, so shall we move on? Assuming there are no more doubts. Fine. So next, you need to predict the output of the following code. Okay, so this is your code starting from def, and then you have a lot of function, right? So def, interest of principal, time, and rate. Okay, so this is a function that you have defined for calculating the simple interest. Okay, what is it? Simple interest. To calculate the simple interest, you definitely need the principal, you need the time, and you need the rate, right? So the product of principal, time, and rate would give you the simple interest. So this is what the function is doing. Now let's see the function. There are different types of parameters being listed here. Now the first parameter is your required parameter or mandatory. So this value has to be mentioned. It cannot be omitted from the function call statement. Now time equal to 2 and rate is equal to 0.10. The values are being given in the function definition header. So these are your default arguments. I hope it is clear. These are your default arguments. Okay. Now what are you trying to do? There are 4 print statements. Now inside each of the print statement, what is there? You are having a function call, right? Now this is something permissible that we have already learned when we learned the functions. What is it? The function calls inside the print statement is permissible, right? So interest of, and then see here you are having only two values which is being passed in the first call. So what will happen in the first invocation? 6100. This would be automatically assigned to the value principal, and see 1, this would be assigned for your time. Okay, and there is no value, or the third argument is missing. It is not going to cause an error. Why is it not going to cause an error? Because the third argument is a default argument. The idea clear? Since the third argument is a default argument, it can be omitted. Okay. Now, so this is a valid function call. We'll see how the calculation happens and the value being printed in the next slide. Now, let's move on to our second function call. So in this function call, you have 5000. So the mandatory or required argument is being passed. And then the default argument rate is also assigned a value. Now, how is the value assigned? By the named argument, so keyword argument. Since we have given the assignment as rate is equal to 0.05, so naturally the value omitted here is that of time, and you have a value for rate. Okay. Now, so this is also a valid function call. Okay. So the third function call wherein you are assigning values for principal, time as well as rate. What would happen? Positionally, this would be assigned in the order in which it is appearing. So 5000 would be assigned to principal, 3 to time, and 0.12 to the rate. So this is again a valid function call, and the value would be printed on screen. Now see the fourth call. In the fourth call, again, this is just a keyword assignment. So what happens? The order is not a matter at all here, right? Since the name is being attached, the confusion is avoided. So if you're writing time equal to 4 and PRNC equal to 5000, 5000 value would be assigned to your first parameter, and value 4 would be assigned to the second parameter. What is your second parameter? Time. Now, which is a value being omitted? Rate. Rate is having a default value, so you needn't worry about it. Okay. So this is how all the 4 function calls are valid here. Now, what are we trying to do? We're trying to calculate the value of interest and then print the value, right? So interest of 6100 comma 1. So what would happen? I'll do just the first one to you. So this would be like 6100 into your time is 1 into 0.10, right? So what will be the answer? So your answer would be around 16. What is this? 16. 16 as the interest. Similarly, since all these are valid function calls, for each of these values, the simple interest would be calculated, and that particular value would be printed on the screen. So I hope these function calls are also clear to you. So you would have the values. See, 610, 500. Why? Because 5000 into 2, 10,000, 10,000 into 0.05. Okay, so which would give you 500. And for the third one, 5000 into 3 into 0.12, which would give you 1800. Okay, and then this would be like 5000 into 4 into 0.10. Okay, so you need to understand how the value gets computed. Mandatory or required parameter has to be mentioned, right? And then you can omit which type of arguments or parameters. The default parameters can be omitted. So for all those default values which are omitted, you need to go back to your function header, take the value, substitute, and then find the answer of the expression. So I hope this program is also clear to you. So do not confuse if you have a default argument in your function header, and if the value is being omitted in your function call statement, you needn't worry because the default value would be taken for computation. Okay. So moving on to our next question. Now, what is the question? You need to write a program, right? So this program has to have a function, which takes a positive integer and return one's position digit of the integer. One's position means the at the zeros, the last digit, right? The least significant digit or your last digit. Okay. So what are you supposed to do? You have to write a Python program. Now the program has to have a user-defined function. Now inside this function, what you have to do is you need to accept a positive integer. Okay, so what is the understanding? You need to write a program. The program should have a user-defined function. The name can be of your choice. Okay, now this function is going to accept a positive integer, and then what you have to return from the function is the last digit or the digit in the ones position or ones place. Okay, the digit in the ones place has to be returned as answer. Okay, so let us see how this can be done. Now let me take a number 121. Okay, when I'm trying to divide this number by 10, okay, the slash, now what would slash give you? Slash would give you the quotient as answer, right? So your quotient would be something like 12. But what would happen if I'm trying to get the remainder? If I'm dividing the same number by 10, what would I get? The remainder would be the last digit, right? Or 1. So I understood that if I'm trying to find the remainder, if by dividing my positive integer by 10, I get an access to the last digit of that particular number. The idea clear? So this is how you're getting access to the last digit. So this is a logic that you need to use inside your user-defined function. Let's see. So this is how we're going to write the function. We're not going to write the entire program, just the function definition. So I have given the name of the function as getPos, and I'm passing a value or a number to the function. Now what would happen? This number has to be divided by 10, and what should be taken? You need to find the remainder. Okay. The remainder would be the last digit of or at the digit at the ones place. This would be saved to a variable ones digit, and this is going to be written. Now suppose you're going to write a main function. How would you write? You would read a number n from the user, right? N is equal to int of input of enter a number, right? And what would happen? A number would be entered. This would be converted to integer and saved in n. You just need to invoke the function, right? Get pos of n. Sorry, just a second. So get pos of n, right? Now this function is going to return a value. So if you want to print the value on the screen, either you have to assign it to a variable and then print the variable, or what can you do? You can write the function call inside the print statement also. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is I'm assigning the value to a variable y and then trying to print y. So what would happen? The whatever value that you are going to pass, suppose you are passing uh, 3 to 4, what would happen? N is taking the value 3 to 4, it would be passed here. Then this num is going to be divided by 10 and the remainder is found out. So what will be in ones digit? 4, right? So you are returning ones digit. So 4 would be returned in this position, right? So y will be having the value 4. If you're trying to print y, what would come on your screen? 4 would come. Okay. So I hope this is also clear to you. So to access the last digit or the digit in the ones position. Okay. So given with a function definition, and then you have to find out what is wrong with this function definition. Now imagine that this function was used inside a program, and if you had written like this, do you think that this particular print statement will work function? and you inside the main function, if you're trying to invoke add, suppose I'm giving add of, suppose I'm giving print of add of 1 comma 2 comma 3. Suppose I'm giving like this, what would happen? So this is your main function, because this is in line with D of DEF. Okay. So this is your main program. Now the main program, you have a print statement, but inside the print statement, you're trying to invoke the function add, right? So x would be given the value 1, y would be given the value 2, and z would be given the value 3. Now what are you supposed to return? The immediate statement in the function body is returned. So x plus y plus z, the expression would be computed. You get the value 6. Summing up all this, you get 6. And this value has to be returned. Now where will this be returned? It would be returned at the point of function call, right? Now, do you think the print statement inside the function definition would be executed, or will control go there? No, because the return statement is considered to be the very last statement of your function body. So once the Python encounters a return statement in the body of the function, it will mark this as the end of the function and then jump from the function, or control gets transferred to the point at which it is being called. Is the idea clear? So for this reason, this print statement will not be executed. If you want the print statement to be executed and the value to be printed on a screen, it has to be attached before the return statement. Okay. So this is the mistake in your program, but this would not cast any error. This is something that you need to understand, because it is not, and it is not a comment also. Okay. So this is not going to, neither going to cast an error, nor this is a comment. The only thing that you need to understand is, if you're having a print statement, after the return statement, this will not be executed. Anything or anything in the function body which appears after return statement is neglected by Python. Okay, so moving on to the next program. Write a Python program with a user-defined function that receives an octal number. Okay, see here, you need to read an octal number, print its decimal, binary, and hexadecimal equivalent. So we know that for the decimal numbers, base is 10, right? For binary numbers, the base is 2. And for hexadecimal, base is 16, and for octal the base is 8. Now what does the base indicate? So in each of the number systems, you would have that many number of symbols for recognition. Yes, Vikash. Right. So in decimal number system, the base is 10, right? So how many symbols, different symbols would be there in the recognition, the number system? You would have 10 different symbols, okay? The symbols ranging from 0 to 9. Is idea clear? Including 0 as well as 9. So thus getting 10 different symbols. What would the symbols be? 1, 0, 1, 2, 3, etc. up to 9. Okay. So next is binary. Okay. In binary, what is the base given? The base is 2, right? So what would be the possible symbols in binary? You would have only 2 recognized symbols in the binary number system. The symbols are 0 and 1. These are the only permissible symbols. Now you have octal, whose base is 8. So you would have 8 different symbols. The symbols ranging from 0 to 7. Okay. So 8 and 9 are not recognizable characters in the octal number system. So after the single digit 7, the next range of numbers would be 1011 up till 17. Is the idea clear? So this is how the octal number system progresses. So these are the 8 different symbols in the octal decimal system. And in the hexadecimal system, the symbols are from 0 to 9. The base is 16. So you would have 16 symbols, wherein the 10 symbols are your numbers 0 to 9. And then you would have the capital letters A to F, A, B, C, D, E, F, all the 6 capital letters. Okay. So 10 plus 6, 16, summing up to 16. And hence you would have 16 different symbols in the hexadecimal number system. Okay. So I hope you could follow the number systems. Now, the question is not just this, what we need to find out. You need to input an octal number. Okay, now prior to moving that, what you need to understand is 0. The number prefixed with 0 is considered to be octal. Okay, so the decimal number system should not start with 0. This is something that we have learned in our first classes. I think in the first classes we learned that. And then um, the 0x is the indicator for hexadecimal. Okay, 0x, x can be either a capital letter or small. Okay, so let's move on to our program already. Now, before moving into the program or doing this program, you need to learn some built-in functions or methods here. Only then with the help of this can we write the program. Okay, so let's see the first one. The first one is int. Okay, so it can take at the most 2 arguments. Okay, the int function can take at the most 2 arguments, x and y, where x is the number of string to be converted to the number object. Okay, so everything here is considered as an object. So x is the number of string to be converted to the number object, and y is considered as the base of the number in x. The idea clear? Y is the base of the number in x. Now what was base? Base we already saw in the decimal number system. The base was 10. Binary it was 2. Octal base was 8. And in the hexadecimal the base was 16. So when you're using int, you have another form of usage of int, wherein the int function takes 2 arguments x and y, where x is a string or the number to be converted to the number object, and then you have y wherein x's base would be written here. Now what would this function return? This would return an integer object. Okay, now what is the integer object? It is a decimal integer object. Okay, so the default base of the number returned is 10. So which is a number system following base 10? Base 10 is the decimal number system, right? So this is a case with int. Okay, then we have bin. Okay, the bin function. Now what does it do? It helps to return the binary equivalent of a given integer. So the conversion to the binary equivalent. So the mandatory thing is the integer should be of decimal type, only then the conversion can happen. Okay. So the binary bin function or method, what it does is it converts and returns the binary equivalent of the given integer. So similarly str, it would return the string version. Str is something like when you read, when you see the name, you see that it is a truncated form of string, right? So it returns the string version of the given object. Okay. Now, which is your next function or the last function that you need to understand is hex, which converts integer number to the corresponding hexadecimal string. So now we're going to move to the program and we're going to see how this is going to be defined. Okay, so you're going to define the function first. So using def, and the name of your function is oct because you are expecting a octal number here. Okay, so in the main program, you would read an octal number num, pass it to the function oct. what would happen? Just print the number to show that this is the octal number received, and then first this is going to be converted to the string type and then stored in num string. Now what should you do? You need to the conversion to the decimal format. The return type should be decimal, right? So the converted string comma 8, what would happen? This is going to be converted into your decimal format. Okay, so this is how you convert an octal number to a decimal. Okay, so the base is given, the base in which the num string is going to be given, because this is not a number. So inside you need to convert it into a string. You cannot take it as such. You might think that when you're reading a string and then converting to integer, you already got it in the number format. Yes, you got it in the number format, but the number format is following decimal number system, right? What is expected here? We are expecting an octal number. So what you need to do is, whatever number you are getting in the argument, as argument, it has to be first converted to the string type, and then this string comma 8. Now what would happen? This would be converted, since this is base 8, it would be converted integer, converts and returns it in the decimal format, and it would be saved in the variable decnum, and when you try to print, you get the decimal number, right? So after that, you are trying to print the number in the binary format. Now what is the mandatory? You need to have the decimal number, only then its equivalent binary can be found out. Using which function? Using the function bin, right? So bin of decnum. What would happen? The decimal number would be converted to binary and it would be printed here. Okay. Now, decnum has the number in decimal format, right? So, the number in hexadecimal, what you need to do is hex of decnum, which would convert it into hexadecimal. So, all these are written inside your print statement. So, what would happen? All the values would be printed. Okay. So, what was your question? You have an octal number. You had to read the octal number from the user and then convert it to a decimal, equivalent decimal, binary, and hexadecimal. So, to do that, you need to have understanding of minimum of 4 functions. The str function, which tries to convert it into a string object. The int function, the version of the int which is taking 2 arguments. Now, what are the arguments? See, the default argument is taken to be 10 here in the case of int, if you're not specifying the base. Okay. So this is the reason when you're writing int of, input of, enter a number, what happens? Whatever number you're entering is by default taken to be the decimal number format. Is it clear? Okay. So what would happen after the conversion? You have to pass it to the int function. In the int, you can have 2 arguments. First is your number string and followed by the base in which this string is being represented. So this is the octal. So I have given the base value as 8. To now the int function, the value returned by the int function is by default in the decimal number format. That has to be printed, and the number in binary means inside the function binary you need to pass the decnum. Okay. Now if you need to convert it to a hexadecimal, inside the hex function you need to pass decnum. So the it would be converted to hexadecimal and binary respectively, but the number has to be in decimal representation. So this is something that you need to keep in mind when you're doing this program. Shall we move on to the next? So this is just the output to make you understand. I had given output, the input value as 0, 1, 0. So it would print the value as such, given octal number. Now the octal number 0, 1, 0 in decimal was 8. The corresponding binary was 1000, and in hexadecimal it is again 8. Now see the prefixed symbol to indicate that it is hexadecimal. The prefix symbol to indicate that it is 0 binary. How is it given? 0b. Okay, so this is the understanding also that you should have. So moving on, next question. Identify the following headers which are valid and which are invalid. So you're given with four function headers, and among this you need to identify which is valid and which is invalid. Now when you're talking about the function headers, what you need to know? You need to know that non-default arguments cannot follow the default argument. So for in this case, the first function is invalid because you have a non-default argument following your default argument here. The same happens in the second as well as in the fourth case. But see the third case wherein all the values are default arguments. So this is not going to cause an error. So among the four options, only option C is a valid one, and all the others are invalid for the reason that the non-default arguments are following the default argument. Is the idea clear? So for this reason, only option C is valid. Okay. So moving on to our next question. So you are given with a function definition. Okay. So function defined as DEF multiply A comma B, and then you're printing the product inside the function. So this is the only statement inside your function body. And the question is, you're given with the following function call statements. I'm sorry. And what you need to check is, you need to check and find out among the function calls, all the function calls, whether all are valid or invalid. Okay. Now see here, multiply of 3 comma 4, multiply of p comma 5, and p comma p plus 2. So you are having literals or you're having constants here in the argument. So as arguments, you are having literals, variables, and see which is in the third option, you're having expressions also, right? Now when we learned arguments, we saw that the arguments can be either literals, variables, or expressions, wherein all this was possible. And for this reason, all the options that have been listed here are permissible or valid in the Python language. The idea clear? All the options that have been given here are valid or options are legal in Python. Okay, so let's move on to the next question. Just a second. So moving on to our next question. So we are given with a function definition here. Okay. So what you have to find out is you have to find is there any error, and if so, what is the error? Okay. So in the previous question, we saw that when you're trying to call a function or inside the function call can have arguments I mean, in the function call, you have arguments. So these arguments can be either literals, variables, or expressions. But you did not see the condition with regards to the parameters, right? So see here, when the values that are coming in the function header of your function definition is supposed to be called as parameters. Now see here x comma y plus 1. Now what is a mandatory condition that you learned when you define the function? The parameters can only be variables. Now why? Because it has to hold some value. It cannot be an expression and after computing you're trying to hold a value. No, this is not possible. So what would happen? So this is the error here. Y plus 1, the expression can't be there, right? So this is an invalid syntax in the function definition header. It cannot have expressions, and hence this program, even if you're writing this as a Python program, this particular code fragment is going to cast an error, and so this is not going to work. Yes, Abhay. Good evening. Welcome to my class. So, moving on, let's move on to the next question. So, you're given with two scenarios, and you need to comment on the scenario. So, that means you need to give an understanding of how well you have understood this, right? So, let's see. Uh, we are talking about passing values to the called function. So we are talking about arguments. Okay. Passing values of immutable types to the called function and passing values of mutable types to the called function. So these are the two scenarios that we are going to see. Okay. Yes, Abhay. So we have been learning the application based questions from the chapter functions in Python. Yes, actually we are already done with Python functions. Okay, and we have completed actually 3 chapters by now. The revision 2 chapters, and then we had a discussion on conceptual based questions as well as we had a discussion on conceptual based questions as well as application based questions, and then we moved on to chapter 3, and then we completed functions in different parts. You may go back and refer to my YouTube lectures wherein okay wherein you can see the lectures, and then you can have then if you come and see the conceptual and the application based questions, this will give you a more idea. Yes, Niranjan, you may post your doubt here. Yeah, bye. So please go back and see my YouTube lectures on uh, Python. Okay, so the title itself will show you what is being covered in the particular class. So in function, we had actually learned as 4 parts because it was a lengthy chapter and each concept had to be explained in detail. Okay. So let us see the different scenario. So passing values to immutable types and mutable types to the called function. Okay. So if you're passing immutable types, example numbers, strings, etc. So when we learned data types, we learned that numbers, strings, etc. are going to be immutable type to the call function, and what happens when you're passing immutable types, they cannot be the call function cannot alter the values of um, past arguments, right? So this is the understanding. When you're passing immutable types, you cannot alter the values of past arguments. But if you're trying to pass mutable types, example list or dictionaries, then the called function would be able to make changes in that. Is the idea clear? If you're passing mutable types, that is list and dictionaries. Now, as we have learned, except list, dictionaries and sets, all the other data types are immutable, right? So if you're passing mutable types, then the function would not be able to make changes in them. So what is the understanding that we have? As arguments, you can pass all values, right? Like say you can pass even mutable types or immutable types. You can pass as arguments lists, tuples, dictionaries, numbers, strings, etc. Okay. So this is a sample program to make you understand how to pass dictionary as argument. Okay. So we have a function. So we see def func of d. Now it starts with the keyword def, and then you have the name of the function followed by the parameter. Okay. Now the parameter is a variable. Now for key in d. Now when do you have such sort of a for loop? When you're trying to address the dictionary, right? So you're trying to print the key and respective values in the dictionary here. I'm sorry, Abhay, I'm from the south. So this is why my medium of instruction is English and I do not know Hindi. You may post if you have any doubts in the chat. I can correct it and I can rectify it via in my lecture live. Okay. So see this program. So in the main function or in the main program, you have a dictionary wherein the values are being listed, and then you're trying to invoke or call the function. What is the name of your function? FUNC, right? Now, what are you passing inside your dictionary? You're passing what are you passing inside your function? You're passing the dictionary D, right? So what would happen? This entire value would be passed in this place. So for each key, now we know as per the definition of dictionary, the first thing that appears is your key and the second thing after each two, what appears is your value, right? So the each value is associated with its key. So this is how the representation in dictionary happens. It always happens in key is to value pair, right? So this is how this the arrangement in the dictionary happens. So, when you're trying to parse a dictionary and see what is being asked inside the dictionary, you have a for loop running from the first value, first key to the last of your dictionary. Now, each time you would be printing the key as well as its value. Now, how is the value printed? D of key, right? The dictionary, and then a subscript you would be writing within the square brackets, you would be mentioning the key, right? So this is how the value would be printed. Now, how are you supposed to print? You give the message key colon as such, then the corresponding key would be printed in the same line, value colon and the corresponding value is printed. So see how this is printed. Now, what did you understand from this program? We understood that even dictionaries could be passed as arguments, but what you need to understand is they are mutable types. Okay, so then the function should be able to make changes. So if you want to, suppose I'm passing list. If I want, I can append or I can change values, modify values. Now all this is possible when I'm passing dictionary or list. But when I'm trying to pass immutable types, the value or modification will not be able to be proceeded. Is the idea clear? So next is something that you just need to know because this is these are the mechanisms that are possible in all other programming languages also. So the question is, what are the different function call mechanism? Okay, so you are trying to call the function and what are the different mechanism? So our understanding is the function call statement. So far we have been writing in the main program, and this can be done inside any other programs also. Okay, so the function call mechanism, actually there are two types. What are they? They are call by value and call by reference. So the explanation is in call by value. What is it? Call by value. The called function makes a separate copy of the past values and then works with them. So original values remain unchanged. So suppose you are having a function say f, and then you are having the value defined a comma b, and imagine that this is your function definition. Okay, now you have something here, then you have the main program, and inside the main program if you're passing 1 comma 2. Okay, so what would happen here is actually a copy is going to be maintained here. So the value in one, the value is copied to A and the second value is copied to B. So actually what happens is 1 and 2 would remain as such, and A and B. It will be working on A and B. So any change that is made inside the function will not be reflected outside. Is the idea clear? So this is what happens with call by value. The called function would make a separate copy and then it would be working on the separate copy. So do you think any change would happen in the original value? No, right? So the original values remain unchanged. Any change that is happening inside the function will not be reflected outside also. Okay. But see this with call by reference, which is the second mechanism, call by reference, right? The called function works with the original values passed to it. So that means you're not making a or you're not creating a copy. Instead, whatever is being passed, the same value is going to be taken. Or in short, if you're saying it is the same memory location that both arguments as well as parameters would be referring to. Okay. Now, since it is the same location, the value, any change in the value in the location would be reflected whichever variable that you are trying to access this value with. Okay. So, in call by reference, the called function works with original values passed to it. So thus any changes made takes place in the original values only. So it would be reflected outside. Yes, Diksha, good evening. Welcome to my class. So in Python, now we need to see that we have two mechanisms for call by value as well as call by reference. Now, how can this be implemented in Python? If you're using immutable types, that means anything which are other than lists, dictionaries and sets, the mechanism used is called by value. Is the idea clear? If you are using immutable data types, in the function call, what would happen? You are using the call by value mechanism. In the function call, if you are using mutable data types, what are the mutable data types? The mutable data types are lists and dictionaries, right? So this would be referring to your call by reference mechanism. Okay. So I hope this is also clear to you. So we just saw how call by value and call by reference works with Python, right? Case-based study questions. Sorry, Abhay, I didn't get you. What are case-based? Can you give me an elaboration on what you're trying to tell me? Sorry, I didn't get you. What is case-based study question? Or you can even post an example so that I can clear that to you. So meanwhile, we'll see the next question. So the next question is, can functions return multiple values? Okay. So we have learned that functions return values and it is using a return statement. Okay. And so far we saw only functions which is returning a single value. Now we need to understand whether the functions can return multiple values. The answer is yes. Okay. Now here I have included a slide which gives you an example to understand how function is going to return multiple values. Okay. Now the understanding is if you have just a single value to be returned, it would be either an expression or a single variable, right? But you need to have multiple values, means this multiple values has to come together in a data type. So the solution is tuple. Okay. So see here, I have a function defined, say squared. Therein I am passing three parameters, x, y, z, and I'm going to return three values, the square of all the three variables, x squared, y squared, and z squared. Now in the main function, you are invoking the function squared by passing 1, 2, 3. Okay. And since this has a return statement, the value returned from this function would be saved in the variable t. Now, how many values would be returned here? Three values, right? 1 squared being 1, 2 squared being 4, and 3 squared being 9. You have 1, 4, and 9. Now, these values would be in the variable t. Now, can all the three variables reside in the variable t? Yes, but how if the return type is? Okay, case-based questions. Are you talking about a case study or if-else cases? Yes, yes, I understand. 12th board examinations, case study questions. So that means you would be given a code fragment, and then you would have to try and understand and analyze or predict the output or find out the errors, correction, all that, right? Didn't you mean that? Yes. See, Abhay, to understand and study such questions, what you need to do is you should first have a thorough knowledge about the basics of the language. Okay. I would say when you're learning your 12th class textbook itself, the first two chapters, if you would look into Sumita Arora's textbook, as per the NCERT syllabus, the first two chapters are covering the basics. The basics in the sense, basics of Python that you had already covered in your class 11th. Now, this two chapters would give you lay a very good foundation for you to learn the higher concepts to be learned in your class 12. Okay, so only if you learn all the basics can you find out or work out questions. Now, behind the textbooks, you are having so much of questions, like there are worked out questions as well as questions that are categorized into concepts, application based, and then thinking oriented. There are certain categories in which the questions are listed. So when you first always try out with worked out examples, so you need to understand that you need to manually go line by line. Yes, Python. You need to go manually line by line each of the program, and then you need to understand this. See, suppose let me first explain this and then teach you how to go manually line by line in a program. Okay. So see here the squared, since it is returning multiple values. What are the values returned? 1, 4 and 9. Now the received or returned value is going to be in the form of a tuple. So when you're trying to print t, what would it happen? It would show in the form of tuple. Okay. So this is the explanation of this program. Now I'll tell you how to go in this program manually. Now suppose you have such a program. The first thing that you need to understand is every time the execution happens from your main program. Is the idea clear? Every time the execution starts from the main program. So to understand the main program, if you start from statement 1, see this is your statement 1, you saw that this is a keyword. What is it? DEF. Now Python understands that this is a keyword. Now where is DEF used? DEF is used whenever you need to define a function. So it understands that statements following the DEF is a function definition. It would just check the first line of the program to ensure that your function header is in the correct syntax. Is the idea clear? So only this would happen, and then you see that the statements are intended. So what would happen? The intended statements are supposed to be the body of your function. You have only one intended statement, and that is the return statement. So this is the single statement that is going to be inside your function. Okay. Now Python is going to ignore the body of the function, and then it would go find where your main part is. Why is it finding that? Because the actual execution of your program happens from the main part. Okay. So this is a point at which the execution happens. How did Python identify? This is in alignment with D of DEF, right? And again, T is not a keyword. So it understood that this is your main program. So execution starts here. Now T equal to something. Now, when Python encounters a statement of this format, it understands that this is an assignment statement. Now, how did Python understand that? Because when we learned operators, we learned that equal to is the assignment operator. Now, concerned with equal to, you have a left hand side, you have a right hand side. So, whatever value in the right hand side, it is getting assigned to the, I'm sorry, I'm extremely sorry. So whatever value is there on the right hand side is getting assigned to the variable on your left hand side. Okay. Now a single variable can take only one value. So if a variable has to take multiple values, then it should be of the data type that is capable of accepting or storing multiple values. So is this understanding clear? So shall I proceed? Now what happens? What does this assignment statement say? T equal to, see, right hand side is not a value but instead squared of 1, 2, 3. Now what would Python do? Python would do the name resolution as we saw in the part 4 of your functions class. What is LEGB rule? Based on the LEGB rule, what would it do is it would understand what is the name squared say. Okay. Now, then it recollects that it had read the definition somewhere in the top, right? So what would happen? The control gets transferred here at the point where the function is defined. Okay. It understands that squared is a function and the control gets transferred here. Now you have to manually assign the value for x as 1. You have to manually assign the value of y as 2 and z as 3. Now what would happen? The function would compute for the values 1, 2, 3. Okay. So what would be returned? X into x. What does asterisk say? Multiplication, right? So x into x means 1 into 1. So the value returned would be, you would have the values in the return statement as 1, comma, 2 into 2, 4. Then you would have 9. Now these three values have to be returned. What does return say? It is the last statement of your function. And then whenever you encounter the return statement, the control has to transfer from this particular point to where it was called. Now, which is the point where it was called? It was called here, right? So these values would appear here. Now see, it is not just one value, it is a sequence or a series of values. Now this value is going to be stored in a tuple and hence the data type of T is tuple. Is the idea clear? Now when you're trying to print T, you get this value. Okay. So this is how you would manually traverse through the program line by line. But if you have to travel like this, what is the mandatory condition? You need to understand the basics, right? So this is why I asked you to go back to the revision 2 chapters, learn the basics so that you have a good basic knowledge, and then all these higher parameters that we are learning right now would be very clear to you. Now see here we are learning, though we are learning about functions, you need to have an understanding about the syntax. You need to have an understanding about how assignment statement looks like, how a value assigning happens, what are the different data types that we have learned in in Python, right? Now all these things has to be considered, right? Abhay, I hope you get what I'm trying to tell you, get the point what I'm trying to tell you. So did that serve your question? Please post it in the chat if the explanation was useful, or you can even give me a thumbs up to make me understand that you understood. Okay, is there any more doubts? I think we are done with all the. Uh, yes, you have doubt, or was that clear to you? So I would suggest you may please visit the other lectures also posted, so that you will have an understanding of how the questions were discussed, and then uh, it was not just a question and answer that we were following in the discussion, but we also had an explanation as to why this particular question was have okay. Uh, why this particular question had this particular answer, or why this code fragment came up with such an output. So these were all something that we discussed when we were learning the application based as well as the conceptual based questions. Okay. So I would highly recommend you to please go back and see all the case study. Yes, we have discussed case study questions in a conceptual as well as application based questions for all chapters. Now, this would be a series that would happen after the completion of each of the chapters. Okay. So, only if you can go through that. So, what you need to do is please go through at least one of the application based or conceptual based lesson. Then you can come back to me in my next class. Tomorrow, I'll not be having a session in YouTube. Day after tomorrow, I would be having Thursday. Okay. So Thursday I don't have. I would be having a session on Friday. So on Friday you can come up and then ask me doubts regarding the portions that you have learned, so that we can have a live lesson also. Is that okay? So with this, today's session is over. So before bidding good night, let me remind you of my promo code SLYT, which would help you in getting a 10% discount in the fee reduction and the subscription fee while subscribing to Unacademy. So you may please follow me in Unacademy app as well as YouTube to and stay tuned for my classes. We'll have discussions on the topics as how things would be. So Abhay, hoping to meet you on Friday. It's the same time, 8:30. Okay. So please go through the lectures. Only then you can have a thorough understanding of what is being discussed there. Okay. Okay then. Good night, kids. So hope you have a wonderful night. So thank you all for joining, and hoping to see all of you in the next class. Good night.